Years ago, I was called up to the Bima for an Aliyah. This is actually 7 years ago in the Chabad of East Fort Lauderdale, where I was residing at the time. And I wasn't comfortable in this particular setting, not being a shul goer. However, I did befriend the rabbi there, as my wife befriended the Rebbitzin. So we went to shul on this particular Shabbos. I was called up by the gabbai, by the person who calls you up for the Aliyah, and it's customary after the Aliyah in this particular shul that the gabbai gets opportunities, that I get an opportunity to bless people in my family. So the gabbai says to me, who do you want to bless? So I saw the guy in front of me say his wife and the name of his kids, and I did the same thing. Then he says, who else do you want to bless? And I'm thinking, who else do I want to bless? The guy's being a mensch. He's reminding me, give the rabbi a bracha. Then he says, who else? So I turn and I look into the congregation, and I start to break out into a little bit of a sweat. There's 85 guys looking at me like, no, come on already. So I said, my friend Maishi, my friend Aaron over here. He says, who else do you want to bless? And I said, I don't know anybody else. Richard? He says, do you want to bless the Packers or the Cowboys? True story. Even though I'm wearing a Dallas Cowboy ring proudly from Super Bowl 27, I said the Green Bay Packers, and you'll hear why shortly. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, in Sheepshead Bay. I usually get at least one. My family moved to New Jersey when I was 3, and at the age of 9, we moved to Miami, Florida. The year was 1972. Now, you pro football fans know that in 1972 was the year of the perfect season, the year the Miami Dolphins went on to win every single game to win a world championship. And at the age of 9, my father, may he rest in peace, was a season ticket holder immediately, and we started going to games. And we started going to practices. And I became a huge fan of pro football. And I recall as a child at the age of 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, my parents would drop me off at Temple Zion, our conservative shul on Miller Road in Miami, Florida. They would drop me off on Sundays and Tuesdays afternoon, and I'd watch them drive out of the parking lot, and I would walk in the front door, and I'd walk right out the back. See, what was going on inside I didn't connect to and I didn't like, and I really liked the lake behind Temple Zion, because I used to like to skip rocks. What I was being taught to me was history. And God said this, and Moses said this, and Moses said this, and Jewish people said this, and to me I wasn't connected to it. But I did learn enough, Baruch Hashem, to become a bar mitzvah boy, and the bar mitzvah, like many you know, was the exit out of, not the entrance into Judaism. And we stopped with the building fund, and we stopped with the membership dues, and we did go to shul for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and I remember Mom lighting candles on Friday nights, and I remember candles being lit for Hanukkah, and I remember chicken soup and kugel and chicken and brisket around holiday time, but there was no spirituality. At the age of 14, I recalled my older brother was never home. He was 2 years older than me. I never saw my older brother because he immersed himself in sports. Football, basketball, wrestling, and track. And at the age of 14, I realized I better get involved in sports or I'm going to go away. I'm going to get into trouble, as I was getting into. So I walked into the weight room of my high school and I said to the coach, can you please show me how to lift weights? I want to go out for the football team. I did not have the physique of a football player, and the coach taught me how to lift weights, and he taught me how to prepare myself for the weight room and to prepare myself to become a football player. So I started pumping iron, and I went out for the football team, and I wasn't very good. The following thing happened to me at the end of my senior season. I walked into my parents' house, and I showed my mom my high school football resume, which is customary that a high school athlete makes to send to colleges around the country. And the resume has your height and your weight. It has your home address, your phone number, the name of your high school, your football position. So I explained this to my mother, and I tell her, Mom, this resume we're supposed to send to colleges around the country with the hopes of getting a college scholarship. And she said, oh, Alan, your resume is so beautiful. I said, no, it's not, Mom. She goes, what's wrong with it? She looked at it again. It had the correct spelling of my last name, which is misspelled often. She looked at my height, 6'4". She goes, you're 6'4". I said, not exactly. I looked at my weight of 190. She goes, you're 190. I said, not exactly. I go, Mom, there's a problem with the resume, and the problem is in my 40-yard dash time. The 40-yard dash is a key metric. They measure the speed of a football player. The 40-yard dash needs to be 4.9 if I was going to get a college scholarship. Mine said 5.3. She said, I can fix your 40-yard dash time. I said, how so, Mom? So she reaches into her purse and she pulls out whiteout. She whites out 5.3. She says, what do you need to run? I said, Mom, if I ran a 4.9, maybe I would get a college scholarship. She whites out the 5.3, writes 4.9, blows on the piece of paper. She says, what do we do now, Alan? I said, Mom, now we're supposed to send it to colleges around the country. And maybe somebody will call and give me a scholarship. She made 50 copies. We sent it to Oklahoma, Nebraska, USC, UCLA, Georgia, Florida, Florida State, Miami, and the list goes on and on and on, and nobody called. However, a friend of a friend said, send the resume to East Texas State University, and we did, and the coach called, Coach Ernest Hawkins, and he said, Alan, I got your high school football resume, and we'd like to bring you in for a look-see. Now, I know you beautiful Jews here in Queens don't know what a look-see is, so I will explain. A look-see is if you're going to invite Shlomo and his family to your house for Shabbos, Thursday, I hope you go to the kosher market and you go into the meat section and you pick up the biggest, most delicious piece of brisket you can find. You're going to look at that brisket. You're going to look at the price in that brisket. You're going to feel the weight. You're going to give it a good once-over before you invest your money in that brisket. That's what a look-see is. And that's what college coaches do to athletes. They fly them around the country for a visit so they can momish look at you. They want to make sure that they're going to get their money's worth. Before leaving Miami, Florida for my 3-day trip to East Texas State University, my parents felt like the product needed to be marketed some more, so they bought me a pair of cowboy boots. They felt like 6'4" wasn't going to be tall enough, that I need to be 6'6" when I walk off that airplane. So I put on a pair of cowboy boots, said goodbye to my parents at the Miami International Airport, flew almost 3 hours to Dallas-Fort Worth, got off the airplane, and there's Coach Ernest Hawkins to greet me. He said, Alan, get your suitcase and come on. We load up in his pick-em-up truck. We head 65 miles northeast of Dallas, Texas, to East Texas State University, located in the Bible Belt of the United States of America. They've never met an Alan Veingrad before, I can promise you. Coach Hawkins pulls up to the gymnasium and says, Alan, we're going to run you in a 40-yard dash. And I said, Coach, I didn't bring my workout gear. I didn't think you were going to run me in a 40-yard dash. He says, we have workout gear, Alan. He goes, come on. We go inside the gymnasium. He takes me into the football locker room, and he screams out, red! And this guy comes walking out behind the lockers. He says, yes, sir, Coach, what do you need? He goes, this is Veingrad from Miami, a high school football recruit. Can you please dress him out? Coach said, Alan, I'm getting my stopwatch, and I'll be back in 10 minutes. Be ready to run a 40-yard dash. And I said, Coach Hawkins, I've run 100 40-yard dashes in my day. I'll be ready to go. Knowing I'd run a 5.3. They gave me a T-shirt that said East Texas State University, football lines on it, a pair of shorts, pair of running shoes. I go out in the gym. I run a few laps. I do a few toe touches. I run a couple of 40-yard dashes. And here comes Coach Hawkins with his stopwatch. Alan, you ready to go? I said, yes, sir, Coach, I'm ready to go. He says, fine. He says, put your hand on the line over here, Alan. I'm going to go to the other side of the gym. When I get to the other line, you go ahead and you start your 40-yard dash. I said, yes, sir, Coach. I know this drill. So I get behind the line. Coach Hawkins gets 2/3 of the way down the 40-yard dash line, and I took one giant step in front of the line. Now, for the sake of the rabbi here, maybe some others, I am now running 39 yards. There's a great big difference between 40 yards and 39 yards, and that's 1 yard. I take off and I run a 4.9 in the 39-yard dash, and I got a full college scholarship to East Texas State University. Knowing what I know today, the lifestyle that I lead today, I do not condone cheating or lying, but I'm a huge fan of taking a giant step. And certainly taking a giant step every single day in your life with the relationship with God. We have to evaluate ourselves all the time. we have to be honest with ourselves and look in the mirror. Am I growing? God forbid you're taking a step back, or you're staying stagnant, and you're not growing with your relationship with God, and you're not growing with Judaism. So we all need to take a step every single day. We do have tremendous opportunities where every holiday is always something inspirational in the holiday that allows us the opportunity. I just hope we're always taking advantage of that. I never experienced anti-Semitism at East Texas State University. I did experience people that never met a Jew before. And I heard often, I never met a Jew before. I went to school with people that lived and were from ranches in Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Texas. They never met a Jew before. And what they knew about Jews, they either heard from their parents, saw in the movies, or read someplace. And they were very interested to know about the Jewish people and the Jewish religion. And they would ask me often. And I just told you 5 minutes ago I skipped Hebrew school. I didn't have the answers for them. I often called home and asked my mom some of the questions, looking for some answers. She also skipped Hebrew school. So we found ourselves struggling for some of these answers, and I was determined to find some of these answers out. I never aspired, dreamt, wanted, or thought it was reality to play in the National Football League. At the end of my sophomore year at East Texas State University, the coach said to me, "Alan, I'd like to meet you in my office. I want to know what your goals are next season," which is customary that a coach would say to one of his players. So I went to the coach's office at the end of my sophomore year. He says, "Alan, when are you going home for the summer?" I said, "Next week, Coach. I have 2 finals Monday and Tuesday. I'm going home on Wednesday." He said, "What are your goals when you come back?" I said, "Coach, I want to come back 250. He says, 250? What do you weigh today? I said, 240. He says, "Wow, you put on 40-something pounds since you've been here?" I said, "Yes, sir, Coach. You Texans serve biscuits and gravy at every meal." And I started lifting weights every single day for 2 hours. And when you combine the two, your body weight goes up and your 40-yard dash time comes down. You see, all those weights that I lifted enabled to become very fast and very strong and put on a lot of muscle. So I told the coach, I'm going to go home, and my first goal is I want to put on 1 pound a week. He said, "You're going to come back about 250? I said, "Yes, sir, Coach. Mama's cooking." He says, "What else, Alan?" I said, "I want to come back, and I'd like to be the team captain. I want to be all-conference. I want to be all-American." He says, "Man, those are some pretty good goals." He says, "What else?" I said, "Those are the goals that I set for myself." He said, "What about pro football?" I said, "What about pro football?" He goes, "That should be one of your goals." And I looked around the room like there was another person in the room. Pro football? He says, "Yeah, you should consider pro football. You're starting to develop yourself. You have long arms. The pro football scouts will come here, and they will recruit you into the NFL. Make it one of your goals." Boy, I walked out of that meeting that day, and my entire life changed. Every second of every minute of every hour of every single day, I was preparing myself for pro football. If you were a friend of mine back then, you would have to protect yourself when it was time for a meal, because I would probably push you away from the table as I pulled the food in, because I was preparing for pro football. Every weight workout, I was getting ready for pro football. Every time at night I'd go to sleep. If you were my roommate, you knew 10 o'clock, phone's off the hook, turn off the TV, turn off the stereo, do not disturb. Veingrad's getting ready for pro football. It consumed my every second. And I got to tell you, I've taken the same approach to being a Jew. That being a Jew is not just when you're in shul, and it's not just on the holidays. It's all the time. After all, everything we do as a Jew, just like a football player, is being recorded. You see, everything we did on the football field was recorded. And the coaches graded every single drill, every single practice, and certainly every single game. Just like God does. We have to always try to be the best possible people we can be. I played 4 years at East Texas State University for Coach Hawkins, and Coach Hawkins never knew that I was Jewish until one day he walked into the weight room and said, "Alan, I just got a letter from the Jewish press, and they want to know if you're Jewish." I said, "Yes, sir, Coach, I'm Jewish." Coach Hawkins walked out of the weight room, went down to his office and called with the Jewish press, said, "Veingrad's Jewish." And they put me first team Jewish All-American. And I'll tell you right now, any kid that plays college football will also be first team Jewish All-American. I was not drafted into the NFL. I did sign a free agent contract in 1985 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It lasted 10 days. I then got picked up off the waiver wire. I went down to Houston, played with the Houston Oilers for 3 weeks. They also cut me. I wasn't big enough, fast enough, strong enough, but the key ingredient I did not have, I wasn't mean enough to play in the NFL. I said, forget it. Even though I was 6'5", 270 pounds, doing a consistent 4.9 in the 40-yard dash, bench pressing 450 pounds twice, jumping 30 inches into the air in a vertical leap. I wasn't ready for the NFL. I said, forget it. Went back to Miami, Florida. Coach Hawkins called and said, Alan, we know that you didn't graduate from this school yet. We'd like for you to come back. We'll give you some track scholarship money as I threw the discus. I went back to East Texas State to help coach the football team, but really to graduate. But deep down inside, I had to try the NFL again. And sometime during my 5th year, I said to my agent, call the Green Bay Packers. I think they had some interest in me last year when I was coming out. He called the Packers. The Packers signed me to a 2-year free agent league minimum contract. I graduated from East Texas State University, and I flew to Green Bay with 2 suitcases. That was everything that I owned. And for 6 weeks, every single day before training camp, I worked out with the offensive line coach, with 12 other guys just like me. Free agent, rookies, nobodies from nowhere, guys trying to make a football team. And I rose to the top of those 12 guys. The first day of training camp, the starting right tackle, the veteran was holding out for a bigger contract, and his backup retired. To use a football pun, there was a hole in the offensive line, and I was the answer. So they put me with the first group. I was a starting rookie with the Green Bay Packers. My first day as a Green Bay Packer, the coach said, Veingrad, out to midfield. I ran out to midfield. He called this other guy out to midfield, which was called the one-on-one pass blocking drill. And if you can do this drill, you can play in the National Football League. This is going to simulate the quarterback. I'm the right tackle. The coach calls you back into the huddle. He tells me it's going to be on 2. I come to the line, and here's a veteran defensive end, a multi-millionaire. Guy's played in the NFL for many years. Now I have to block him for 4 seconds or longer if I can and keep him off this dummy. And way up high in the sky is a video camera videotaping this drill. If you can do this on the practice field, you can do this on Sunday. I get to the line of scrimmage, and here comes the cadence, blue 22, blue 22. In the middle of the cadence, this guy says to me, come on, Jew boy. Hut, hut. And I come out of my stance, and I hit this guy right in the chest. And I stopped him right on the line. We might have moved a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right. Maybe he pushed me back about a foot. He didn't get close to the stand-up simulated quarterback over here. The whistle blows, 2 coaches run out to midfield, and one coach says, this guy Veingrad is a free agent rookie, nobody from nowhere. He should not block you. Get off the field. And my coach, of course, ran out to say, Veingrad, that was some awesome block. My confidence soared, but deep down inside, I wanted to know, one, why that guy called me Jew boy. And how did he know I was Jewish? After all, I wasn't there with a yarmulke, tzitzits, or a big beard. After practice, I walked up to the guy and said, why'd you call me that? And so he pointed to my helmet that had my name written across it in a big white piece of athletic tape, black letters, Veingrad. He goes, Veingrad, I know that's a Jewish name. I go, how do you know that was a Jewish name? He goes, I just knew you were Jewish. I said, that was kind of hurtful to call me that. He goes, I'm sorry, I'll never say that to you again. Let me tell you what the pros know about the Jews. My college teammates, as I said, never met a Jew before. But my pro teammates, they knew all about the Jewish people. And I often got questions like, what is it with your people, Alan? What is it with your people? And I would always ask them, what do you mean? Well, you guys are the chosen ones. What is it with the Jewish people? I said, what do you mean? Why are the Jews so focused on education? Why are the Jews so focused on family? Why are the Jews so focused on success? And I used to ask them, why are you saying that? They would tell me the following. When you play in the National Football League, you get hurt often. And when you get hurt, the team gives you an opinion. And you've got to take care of your body. You better go get a second opinion. And when you need surgery, you are going to find the best doctor in this country to repair your body. In most cases, that guy's going to be Jewish. Your sports agents are Jewish. Your lawyers are Jewish, your CPAs are Jewish, and any business associate are Jewish. So my teammates would say to me often that they know Jews that they're associating with, And it made my confidence and my pride in being Jewish soar. So the pros knew all about the Jewish people, but they never had one as a teammate. I started every single game as a rookie in the preseason. All the cuts were done. I walked into the locker room. I looked in my locker, and there was a little phone message note from the team secretary. I picked it up. It said, to Alan Veingrad, call Lou Weinstein. With a local Green Bay number, I knew exactly who that guy was, even though I never met him before. I knew what he wanted as opposed to knowing who he was. I took my equipment off, took a shower, got dressed, grabbed that message, went into the players' lounge, called up Mr. Weinstein. I said, hello, Lou, this is Alan Veingrad with the Green Bay Packers. What can I do for you? He said, Alan, welcome to Green Bay. I'd like to take you to lunch tomorrow. I said, it's awfully nice of you. Thank you. Where are we going? He goes, my country club. And I said, your country club? Where's this country club? So he tells me how to get there. I drive to his country club the next day. I walk into the restaurant of this country club, this beautiful old country club in Green Bay, Wisconsin, fall 1986. And there's this old man sitting in the back of the restaurant. He waves his hand up in the air. And I walk up to him and said, hello, Lou, I'm Alan Veingrad. He says, how do you do, Alan? He says, please have a seat. He calls over the waiter. The waiter comes running over. He says, please get this guy some lunch. The waiter gives me a menu. I open the menu up. I look at the right side. I look at the left side. I said, I'll take the right side of the menu, please. I closed the menu up. I said, Lou, what could I do for you? He said, hey, I'm just a local businessman. I just want to welcome you to Green Bay. I read about you in the Jewish press that you're one of the 5 Jews in the National Football League, and I want to know where you're going for Rosh Hashanah. It's in 2 weeks, and it's on Tuesday, and I know it's your day off. I said, wow, thank you very much. I'd like to go with you and your family. And then he says the following to me. He goes, where are you living right now? I said, I'm living in a motel. He says, do you need to buy a house? Do you need to rent a house? Do you have family? I said, no, it's just me. I just need a 1-bedroom apartment. He goes, I'll call my realtor if you'd like, and he'll help you find an apartment. I said, man, that'd be great, because I don't know what to do right now, and the motel's kind of closing in on me. He says, do you have a car? Do you own a car? Do you want to buy a car? Do you want to borrow a car? I said, right now I'm renting a car. I said, I think I might want to buy a car. He goes, I can have my car guy call you. He says, you're going to make some bucks this year, Alan. He goes, and I know a lot about investing money. I own real estate all over the state. I'm a businessman. I can help you invest your money. I can introduce you to money managers. I said, man, I never had any money before. Thanks for the advice. It was a Jew reaching out to a Jew. And I didn't really know what that meant until a few years ago. My rabbi called me on the telephone and said, Alan, do me a favor. Come on by the house. I said, okay, of course, Rabbi. Drove by his house. I walked inside. I said, what's up, Rabbi? He said, Alan, I need some help. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out some money. I said, what do you need, Rabbi? He goes, I don't need any money. Maybe just a little. I said, what's up, Rabbi? What do you need? He goes, I can't call 100 people every Friday. In the east side of Fort Lauderdale and downtown Fort Lauderdale, we helped start a Chabad house a few years ago. It's not Queens, New York. We get 6 guys, 7 guys, 8 guys. And if the rabbi can get the time to call 100 guys, maybe we'll have a minyan. So he said to me, Alan, the guys look up to you. Can you please call some guys? I said, no way, Rabbi. That's not my job. I have 2 jobs and a wife and kids. I'm not doing that. The next week I was studying the Parsha. And in the Parsha, what I was reading in the commentary talked about the obligation of a Jew. The obligation of a Jew, the privilege of a Jew to reach out to another Jew. And it reminded me of the old man, Lou Weinstein, may he rest in peace, how he reached out to me and sustained me during my 5 years in Green Bay. I called Rabbi Kaplan back and I said, Rabbi, I'm coming over with some names. I'll call every Jew in Fort Lauderdale if you'd like. How a Jew reaches out to a Jew. And I know in my own house, I don't invite members from our community to our house for Shabbos. I reach outside of the community. I want those that don't know the preciousness that we have with Shabbos. I want the people that are driving, I want them to come to my house. I want them to see Shabbos. My kids want them to come to our house. And if a Shabbos goes by and we don't have people at our house, my kids are like, Dad, what's up? What's going on, Dad? So you know the preciousness of Shabbos? You know the sweetness of Shabbos? Invite somebody outside of the community. Invite somebody outside of the community to the next time there's a speaker here. Or if you hear something today, and I hope that you do, tell that person that's not connected to the Jewish community. I get asked often, don't you miss playing in the National Football League? And I said, yeah, I do. I miss some things about it. What do you miss, Alan? What do you miss? I said, I miss the money. No, that's not true. What do you miss? Do you miss running out of the tunnel on Sunday at Lambeau Field to play against the Giants? Yeah, you miss that. You miss the competition. But if you ask any football player that plays in the National Football League, what do you miss? I guarantee every single one of them will tell you the camaraderie. They all miss the camaraderie. They all miss how the team comes together for a common goal. See, I don't miss the camaraderie because I'm connected to the Jewish community. Whether it's in Chicago, where I was a few weeks ago, or Philadelphia, where I was for Shabbos, or where I was today when I got picked up by a stranger, this guy Steve, picked me up, and immediately we were connected because we're Jews. The connection of the Jewish community, it's very powerful, and I've been very fortunate the last 3 years that I've had the opportunity to speak to many, many Jewish communities and immediately get connected. After 5 great years playing for the Packers, of course, my agent, Steve Weinberg of Dallas, Texas, calls me on the telephone and says, Alan, the Dallas Cowboys want to sign you to a contract. I said, Steve, thanks, but no thanks. I hang up on him. He calls right back and says, what are you hanging up for? I said, Steve, I like playing in Green Bay. I'm a 290-pound offensive lineman. Green Bay has soft, natural grass. It's cold in Green Bay. When you fall on soft grass. And when you're a big guy, you run very well in cold weather. Texas Stadium has AstroTurf, and they have a coach by the name of Jimmy Johnson. I don't care to play for him. Steve Weinberg tells me the following. He said, Alan, how old are you? I said, Steve, I'm 29. He said, how long you played in the NFL? I said, 5 years. I said, why you ask me this? He says, Alan, how many Jewish families are in Green Bay? I said, 100. And I've been to shul with them a number of times. Then he says to me, out of the 100 Jewish families, how many produced an eligible woman for you to date? And I said, 1. And Steve, you know what happened. We had a date once 2 years ago, and it didn't work out. Then he tells me the following, which is a true story. He said, Alan, a guy that has looks like yours, don't you think you should increase the ratio and move to a bigger, more vibrant Jewish community? I said, what are you saying? He says, you're not that good looking. So I asked him about the contract the Dallas Cowboys are offering me. He tells me, and I asked him how much is guaranteed, and he tells me. Then I asked him if I fly to Dallas tomorrow, which was the last day of the free agent signing period, can I pick up that big check? He says, yes, you can. Less my cut, of course. I said, of course, Steve. So I fly to Dallas, and I play 2 years for the Dallas Cowboys. And then I retire after the Super Bowl, and I get married to a Jewish girl out of Miami, Florida. We have our first child. And then I know the question that you have, so what happened to you, Alan? What happened? I got a call from my cousin Jonathan Rubin, who's a doctor. And for 7 years, when you're a Jewish boy playing in the National Football League and you get hurt, the first thing you do is you call your mother, of course. And every time I called my mother, she would always tell me, send your x-rays to cousin Jonathan, the doctor in the family. So I did that for 7 years. And for 7 years, he advised me on my injuries. Do I play or do I not play? So when I retired, he invites me to his house for his Shabbos. I'm living in Fort Lauderdale. He's in Miami Beach. A frum, passionate, Baal Teshuva for over 25 years, well-studied. I didn't really have any relationship with cousin Jonathan other than the fact he gave me free medical advice for 7 years. Cousin Jonathan is like this big, has a little bitty yarmulke, little pair of glasses. He invites me to his house for his Shabbos with my wife and my new baby. And we walk into his house and I meet my other cousins, Chaya, Leah, Moshe, Zach, Benji. I meet my cousin Abby, who I've seen maybe 3 times my whole life. He then says, sit down, Alan, let's go ahead. We're going to make Kiddush on the wine. And he starts with this whole long Kiddush. I remember Bray Priya Guffin. He goes through a whole long process. He then says to me, stand up, let's go wash our hands. So I stand up and I said, wait, I already washed. He says, no, I'll show you how to wash. Come with me. Takes me to this special sink with this special cup. I mean, he shows me how to wash my hands. He tells me what to say. I then sit down after the motzi, and we start with this delicious salmon teriyaki. I had 3 pieces. I had a challah and a half of homemade challah. Baruch Hashem, he's a very successful doctor. A lady came out of the back and cleaned up all the plates, and this beautiful matzo ball soup showed up in front of me. I had 2 bowls. Again, the plates cleared, and the chicken came out, and brisket came out, and I had 4 pieces of chicken and 4 pieces of brisket, and all the sides. Then again, everything got cleared away. And during this whole time, his children were given over the Vartoras about the parsha of the week. And all I can say was, pass this and pass that. He said, I didn't know anything about the Torah. Then the dessert came, and I had 2 pieces of apple pie and a piece of chocolate cake. Then the question came, and this is the second question. The first one was, would you come to my house for a Shabbos? And the second question was, Alan, would you be interested in going to a Torah class? And I was thinking, here it comes. Out of obligation, I said, yes, Cousin Jonathan, I would go to 1 Torah class. He goes, I'll have a rabbi call you on Monday. I went to 1 Torah class. Cousin Jonathan tells me the Torah class is going to be in my neighborhood. However, the rabbi, when he called me, he gives me the address, and he tells me it's 8 o'clock Wednesday night at Dr. Gober's house, who's hosting the class. It was not in my neighborhood. It was a few neighborhoods away from where I lived. And as the neighborhoods go, so does the price of the homes. When I saw the address, I realized that it was in the who's who of South Florida, where Dan Marino lives and all the wealthy businessmen live. I've never been in this neighborhood because I never can get into the guard gate. But now I had a pass. After a 15-minute interrogation, I get through the guard gate. I pulled up to this doctor's house, Dr. Mel Gober, and I knocked on these doors. And Dr. Gober opens up this door. And when you're 6'5", you always notice height to make sure you don't bump your head. And I noticed there were 16-foot doors. I walked into this house, and the ceilings were 32 feet high, probably the same as in here. My jaw hung open when I saw the enormous size of this house. It was worth $4, $5, maybe $6 million. Dr. Gober says to me, Alan, please come with me. The rabbi's here. He's ready to start the class. And as I'm walking through this house, I'm like this. I've never seen a house like this in my entire life. And as I pass by the living room, I look through this gigantic piece of glass overlooking this beautiful lake in South Florida. There was a resort-style size swimming pool behind this guy's house. And I looked down at the bottom of the lake, and I realized if I owned this house, I would own a sailboat and a rowboat and a motorboat and a jet ski and kayaks. And if I owned this house, every football player I ever met could come to this house and we would party it up. I get to the back of the house, and there's Rabbi Gruenstein, who's hosting the class, who's giving the class. He says, how do you do? Please have a seat. We're going to start the class now. There was 4 or 5 men, 5 or 6 ladies. The rabbi starts the parsha of the week. And I thought the parsha of the week was last week. You see, nobody told me it was every single week. And for 59.5 minutes, the rabbi's going through the parsha of the week. And for 59.5 minutes, I was thinking about this house. 30 seconds to go in this class, and I think somebody let Michael Strahan out of one side of the house and number 56, Lawrence Taylor, out of the other side of the house, and they combined and hit me right in the head when the rabbi starts talking about materialism and meaning and purpose and the life of a Jew and what's important for a Jew. And then the class ended, and my jaw was like this. You're kidding me. The rabbi is a mind reader. I said to the rabbi, Rabbi, I need some information. I didn't know that the Torah was inspirational. You see, Rabbi, every single book ever written by any great football coach, baseball coach, basketball coach, I read the book. Every great athlete, from Babe Ruth till today, Rabbi, I read the book. Every motivational tape, I own it. I listen to it. And now you're telling me that there's inspiration? It's not just a history book? He says, come to the class next Wednesday night. I'll bring you a book. And I went on this journey for 6 years, learning and learning about the Torah and about the inspiration that we have every single day that we can learn as a Jew. Then in 2003, I met some Chabad rabbis. And they invited me to their home for Shabbos. And I was going every single Friday night with my family to their house for Shabbos. And at the same time, I was going out with my friends on Saturday night. And I liked how I felt on Friday, and I didn't like how I felt on Saturday night. I liked the discussions Friday night, and Saturday night I didn't like the discussions. And then the Fort Worth Star-Telegram called me up, and they did a story on me. Where are they now? I'm sure you've seen the pieces. Where's Alan Veingrad 10 years after his retirement from the National Football League? And as I do often, I asked the reporter, please send me a copy. I want to see how many mistakes I can catch. And I read this story, and it talked about Alan Veingrad's life, living a half a mile from the beach of Fort Lauderdale, kayaking and fishing, taekwondo, barbecuing, rollerblading with his kids. And I read it to see this is a pretty shallow life. But however, Friday night was filled with meaning and purpose. And I decided right then and there that I want to take my Friday night feeling into Saturday night, into Sunday night, and throughout the whole week. But my biggest fear was talking to two little girls. At the time, my daughter was 8, my other daughter was 6. I was afraid to tell these two little girls that we're not camping anymore with the father-daughter camping club that we belonged to because it fell out on Shabbos. So I sat my daughters down and I said, girls, you know how we go to the rabbi's house every Friday night? Yes. And you know how much we enjoy it? I said, yes. I said, we're going to start hosting our own Shabbases. We can't go camping anymore on the weekends because it falls on Shabbos. And they said, why? I said, why? Because I want to have our own family here. And our own friends here. And we're going to walk to shul tomorrow. 2 miles. What happened the first Shabbos? The first Shabbos, I woke up. I walked to the front of my house to go up the stairs to get these girls up to go walk to shul with me. They were already downstairs dressed in their Shabbos clothes. They couldn't wait to walk to shul. And of course, I provided the biggest Shabbos parties known to mankind with sugar. And of course they know Shabbos is sweet, and they would never change their lives to go back because they get asked often by people in the family, well, don't you miss your other part of your life? Don't you miss what you used to do on Saturday with your family with matinees and going to TGI Fridays and Cheesecake Factory? And they always say, no, we don't miss that at all. And I know the questions you have, so what did your friends and your family say? I want to tell you what my father said. See, my father was the biggest Alan Veingrad fan and the proudest father that a father could be of a son. In every game I ever played, my father made sure, somehow, some way, he made sure I had a copy of that game film from my library. And because of him, I have every game I ever played in. So when I retired from the National Football League, he was very upset. He was very sad. He wanted me to play longer. He really enjoyed his Sundays. Then I tell my dad, and about 4 years ago, Dad, I'm going to start wearing a yarmulke full-time and wearing tzitzits, and I'm going to start observing, becoming Torah observant, having Shabbos. And he said, son, that's good for you. Dad, come to shul with me. No, son, it's not for me. Dad, come to shul, Dad, you'll see your grandkids. No, thank you, son. Dad, we're sponsoring the Kiddush. Come to shul. He comes for the Kiddush, and he sat back for about a year, and he observed what happened to me. So then my father tells me the following as we met weekly for lunch. You know, son, I was very proud of you wearing a Dallas Cowboy helmet on your head. I was very proud of you, son, wearing a Green Bay Packer helmet on your head. But I'm prouder of you with a yarmulke on. That spoke huge volumes to me. So I want to encourage you to reach out to those outside of the community. Certainly take another step with your growth in Yiddishkeit. Challenge yourself. As a football player, the coaches really challenged us. And the challenges were difficult and they were painful. And certainly the growth that I've taken on is my pace, it's my growth. But I welcome the challenge, I welcome the growth. And I want you to know, even though I'm a Packer fan, I am rooting for the Giants today.